All right, video number 2, the 3D view and outliner. Those are the area types that we were largely looking at in the last video, and we'll just barely touch on the spreadsheet. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you about is my hand position. I've got my left hand with my pinky on A, and then the fingers along up to the F. So that's kind of like left hand in home row position, if you're familiar with that. And so it's there because that's the easiest way to get to the shortcuts, which are going to be absolutely important. And I'll talk about that more in their own video. But so the next thing also is that I'm using a 3-button mouse with a left click, right click, and then a scroll wheel that has a middle click in it, or a scroll wheel I can click. So the first thing I do in a 3D view whenever I get one is I press T to hide this toolbar. I'm just tapping T back and forth. You can unhide it with T as well. I don't use those buttons to pick my tools. I just use the hotkeys because it's so much faster. And if you do it that way, it's going to make you very slow. The only one I use from here is measure sometimes. So next, what we're looking at here is called the scene in the 3D view. You have more than one scene in a Blender file, but typically you're just going to work with one scene. And this is a camera, and I select it by clicking it with the left mouse button. This is a mesh object, and this is a light object. That camera is also an object. They're all objects. And if you look, you can see this little orange dot here. There's an orange dot there. There's an orange dot there. Those are the origins of the objects. We'll touch more on that in a little bit. So all of your objects are inside of your scene. And then over in the panel over here, this is called the outliner, and this gives us an outline of what's in our scene. In this case, in the 3D view. There are other types of outliners. We'll touch on those in another video. And I can select objects from over here, and the same way by left clicking them. I can also hold down Shift and select multiple objects. We'll do more on selection in another video down the road. So interacting with the 3D view. Oh, real quick before I do that, you can also hide stuff. You can hide stuff by clicking the little icon inside of the outliner, or you can do it by pressing H in the 3D view and it'll hide whatever you have selected. Alt H unhides. So let's say you have a really complex setup with hidden stuff. You've just got a ton of stuff in here and you don't want to multi-click and whatever. You want to have a view where everything's unhidden and a view where everything isn't, and a view where everything is hidden in a very specific way. What you can do is up here, this is called the view layer, and this is kind of think about this like layers, the way Photoshop has layers. This is like a 3D version of that. What you can do is click this button to add a new view layer, and you can either do a new one where everything's visible, or you can copy settings. I'm not sure about blank. Copy settings. Now we've got view layer 001, which is just has the same setup as our last one in terms of stuff being hidden. And I can choose which one I'm on using this view layer thing. So using the drop down on the left. So I'm going to rename view layer 001 to all unhidden by just left clicking in this title area. And I'm going to unhide here. And so this way I can pop back and forth between the one where I hid the layer where I hid stuff and the layer where everything is unhidden. So I just want you to be familiar with what view layers are right out the gate. So then rotating the 3D view, you just click in on your mouse scroll button. It's middle mouse click, and you can hold that in and you can drag around, and that's how you rotate. To pan, hold down Shift with your pinky and do the same thing with the mouse. You click in on the middle mouse button. Now I can pan. So using this, you can really start to fly around. There are other ways to do it. Oh, and zooming. Zooming is scrolling in and scrolling out with the scroll wheel. So the scroll wheel is going to be a big deal in terms of navigation. And then we get into just basic transforms. We'll touch a lot more on these in the shortcuts video, and the modeling video probably. G is for grab, and G enters a modal, kind of like that. Remember in the last video we right-clicked and then got the split to get a modal that we can left-click to confirm, right-click to cancel. Same thing here. G lets us grab and move our objects that are whatever object or objects are selected. G, and then right-click to cancel or left-click to confirm. S for scale, to make it bigger and smaller. and R for rotate, to rotate. A lot of the time if I'm doing stuff like that, I like to have a split, and that way I can see from different angles. And to change the angle really quickly, there's a hotkey for this, but I actually tend to just click on this gizmo up here, which lets me choose from what angle or what axis I want to view. So negative Y is like from the front, and positive X is from the side, positive Z is from the top. And so that's pretty much how I do that, just in terms of setting up views. And then that's nice because as you move stuff, the other views will update accordingly. Sorry, my cat's banging on the door. I don't know if you can hear it. And then to add objects, you hold down the left shift with your pinky, and then use your ring finger to tap A, and it pulls up this dialog, and it's the add dialog. So I can go to add mesh, and meshes are what you're mostly going to use. And I added a UV sphere, and I can press G and move it around however I want. So then next I want to touch on modes. You see up here there's a drop down. This is the mode for the selected object. Cameras don't have multiple modes, they just have object mode. But meshes, which you're using mostly, have a lot of modes. The main ones are going to be object mode, edit mode, and for some of us, sculpt mode. To get to edit mode, if you are in object mode, you press tab with your pinky. And this pulls up all the vertices and stuff and edges, and you can mess around with the geometry. Again, with the same, you select them with left click, or you can click and drag to select them. And then I can press S and get the scale and stuff like that, or G to move. So we'll talk more about that in another video. And I just hit tab with my left pinky to tab and go back into object mode. So remember, left pinky, tab gets you in and out of object mode. And then I'm going to turn one of these to a spreadsheet just so you see it. Over here on the right, this shows us all the vertices and edges and faces for the mesh that we have selected, and some other stuff that you can get in there. There's attributes. We'll talk about that at a later time. So if I left click on this one, you can see there's only 8, and it starts counting from 0, kind of like the way these videos are numbered. So just remember, computers and blenders start counting typically from 0, not from 1. And so if I tab in, you can see there's a bunch of vertices, and the 0 to 7, there's 8 of them. And I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to show you in this video.